Mr. Immortal, aka Craig Hollis, possessed the superhuman ability of immortality. Before his untimely death, his teammate and sometimes lover, Dinah Soar, was the only one able to calm him down when he was revived, as he was prone to fits of rage upon returning to life. This unique ability always gave him the courage to try daring, reckless, life-endangering stunts, and he was quite ready to sacrifice himself for the rest of the team. It also left him in frequent states of depression by having to watch his loved ones die around him. Friendship with the god DEATHURGE. The cosmic entity DEATHURGE regularly appeared to him. DEATHURGE's first appearance before Craig happened shortly after his birth and the untimely death of his mother. His mother made DEATHURGE promise that he would look after Craig, and he did so ever since in his own unique way. Craig would dub DEATHURGE the Urge, and the two became very close. Everyone thought the Urge to be an imaginary friend, and he was constantly urging Craig to endanger his life by, for example, playing in traffic. Each attempt at the boy's first death was averted, and Craig wrote it off as, "Just playing with the urge, daddy." On Craig's 8th birthday, DEATHURGE had once again stimulated Craig into a daring stunt. First, setting his house on fire, and then telling Craig to hide under the house while it was burning down. Craig was ultimately saved by the firemen, but he was forced to see DEATHURGE take his father to the afterlife. DEATHURGE stopped visiting Craig afterwards, and Craig was moved into a new home, a new life. His father, Mr. O'Duggan, was an abusive man, but Craig persevered as he was motivated by the presence of Terry, Mr. O'Duggan's daughter. She became his first real friend, and this would ultimately develop into love. Insanely in love with each other, they decided to move out and try to live on just that, love. Craig had to work long and hard, but he kept going until the day Terry left, leaving only a letter on the table. She had committed suicide, and once more DEATHURGE appeared. Grief-stricken, Craig begged DEATHURGE to take him as well, but DEATHURGE refused and departed again. Craig wanted to kill himself, and his first suicide attempt was jumping off a building, only to find that he survived. Every successive suicide attempt, from dynamite to drowning, failed as well, and so he found he couldn't die. Mr. Immortal and the Great Lakes Avengers. Seeing the amazing potential of having superpowers, Craig found his calling and decided that he would become a superhero. On his first outing as a superhero, trying to foil a bank robbery, Craig was shot and left for dead. He decided it might be best to form a team, so his abilities could actually be useful. Craig put out an ad in the newspaper asking for teammates. You could say that it was successful as the Great Lakes Avengers were formed soon after, with its founding members Mr. Immortal, Flatman, Doorman, Big Bertha, Dinah Soar, and Leatherboy. Over time, Craig would develop a loving relationship with Dinah Soar, as he was also the only one who could understand her language. It turned out that he and her were soulmates, and he was her ageless love, as she herself also possessed a degree of immortality. Hawkeye and Mockingbird. After operating together for a time, the Great Lakes Avengers came into contact with Hawkeye and Mockingbird, who were investigating their unofficial Avengers franchise. The official Avengers decided to stay on to help train the GLA, and Hawkeye even tried to get them official recognition by the main branch. The Great Lakes Avengers occasionally assisted the Avengers with cases, such as rescuing a kidnapped Scarlet Witch or delaying Terminus. Lightning rods. After the disappearance of the Avengers against the supervillain, Mr. Immortal and the GLA renamed themselves the Lightning Rods in order to cash in on the notoriety of the new heroes, the Thunderbolts. This turned out to be a mistake when the Thunderbolts were revealed as the masters of evil. The Lightning Rods allied themselves with S.H.I.E.L.D. to go after the renegade Thunderbolts afterwards. Great Lakes X-Men. Craig happily rejoiced when he heard the real Avengers had disassembled, since that meant his group was now the real Avengers. In their following outing against Maelstrom, Dinah Soar was killed. The DEATHURGE appeared to take her away to the afterlife. The former friendship between him and DEATHURGE was now truly over. Mr. Immortal would meet DEATHURGE again at Dinah Soar's funeral, where DEATHURGE expressed his regret, showing that he had truly come to love Craig as something of a son. Craig himself was enraged at DEATHURGE, having taken away all that Craig had ever cared about, so he attacked DEATHURGE, but received only a sound thrashing. In his grief, Mr. Immortal started spending a lot of time downloading the Magnolia soundtrack. Not only that, but he also dressed up in Dinah Soar's costume and impaled himself on gigantic scissors. Seeing him full of despair, DEATHURGE revealed to Craig what his destiny was, to outlive everyone as the one true immortal, and then learn the grand secret that would reveal itself at the end of time. DEATHURGE, by taking some of his loved ones, tried to prepare Craig so that he could truly live up to that destiny, and the villain, Maelstrom, was at the point that he could very well take that purpose away, ending the universe in its entirety prematurely. Explaining his role as Homo Supreme in the grand scheme of things gave Mr. Immortal a new incentive to live, and he set out to stop Maelstrom and save the universe. The GLA stormed Maelstrom's base, and it was ultimately Mr. Immortal that was able to save the universe, although at the cost of his friend Doorman. Coming close to Maelstrom, Mr. Immortal was able to play on his feelings that ultimately Maelstrom would be the one left alone, and that was the grand secret of things. Horrified by the thought, Maelstrom wanted a way out, and Mr. Immortal offered him one: suicide. Not knowing that Mr. Immortal would be able to come back from the injury, Maelstrom killed himself like Craig had done, and Craig was able to push the button that stopped the machine Maelstrom had created to achieve the destruction of the universe. The GLA saved everybody, but gained no recognition, and were even forced to drop the Avengers name. But the group persevered, becoming the GLX, Great Lakes X-Men. Great Lakes Initiative. During the events of Avengers Civil War, the team was one of the first to register with the United States government as required by the recent Superhuman Registration Act. They became the official government-sanctioned protectors of Wisconsin. However, the GLI team was attacked by Deadpool in a misbegotten plan to win government favor by bringing in unregistered rogue superhumans. Before this, a superhero called Big Bertha and Craig got engaged. But due to his drunkenness, it didn't even last 24 hours. This series of unfortunate events eventually led to the team's segregation. To deal with his drinking problem, Craig paid a friend of his named Mike to keep an eye on him while he buried himself for an entire year to meditate, so he wouldn't try to escape if he changed his mind. The GLA in Detroit. When Flatman got the Avengers legal representative Connie Ferrarito to reinstate the Great Lake Avengers as a permanent and official addition to the Avengers, Doorman and Big Bertha were the only members who answered his call to bring the team together. Mr. Immortal was later convinced by Doorman to get out of his voluntary exile and return to the GLA soon afterwards. Following the Great Lakes Avengers' first adventure with the returned Mr. Immortal, the team was informed by Deadpool as a member of the Avengers Unity Division that they were fired, informing them that their legal claim of the name didn't hold up in court. He stated that people simply didn't like them, but comforted them, proclaiming that in a few years they could try to be in the spotlight again.